resilience. I was just on C-SPAN, Washington Journal this morning. I want to thank Mimi, the amazing host there. Excuse me one second here. I want to thank Mimi, the amazing host. I had to turn the air conditioner off, and this fan was bothering me in the studio. Thank you. Uh, anyway, it's off. I want to thank Mimi, I was saying, the host on Washington Journal this morning on C-SPAN for having me on. An amazing conversation. I love doing C-SPAN. Hadn't done it in a little while. I love doing it because you're taking phone calls from all across the country. I took Republican calls and Democrat calls and independent calls, and it's amazing to hear people from different perspectives talk about climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's amazing to hear those science deniers, to be sure, and other persons who have different points of view. And we talk politics, including Trump and Biden and a lot of stuff. It was a great hour on C-SPAN this morning, primarily promoting again our big conversation tomorrow night. I've brought back those black symposia with all these black thought leaders and opinion makers on stage. That's tomorrow night, live on C-SPAN, a climate justice symposium with everybody who's anybody. 7 Eastern, 6 Central, 4 Pacific tomorrow night on C-SPAN. Don't miss that. In advance of that, we'll talk to, again, Shalonda Baker from the Energy Department about their work on these issues. On the B side of our tour, a dialogue with the co-founder and CEO of Chromatic Black, Amini Bloodworth, about this scary Republican plan called Project 2025. Project 2025, which unapologetically aims to roll back civil rights across the board if Donald Trump is their ally in the White House after the November elections. In our third hour, we'll get our laugh on with the legendary comic and actor George Wallace. These days, things are so serious, you know how we do it. If we don't laugh every now and then, we're in trouble. So we'll get our laugh on today after these 2 hours of serious dialogue with George Wallace in our final hour. But in this first hour today, let's talk politics with the co-executive director of the Highlander Research and Education Center, Ashley Woodard Henderson, one of my favorite guests who I'm always honored to have back on this program. Ashley, I love you. There ain't nothing you can do about it, and I'm glad to hear your voice.
It's so great to be back, and I love you too. How you doing?
I'm doing the best I can. If I complained, I'd be an ingrate. Glad to have you. A lot to cover in this hour. Let me do this first. Come on, pull up the Trump clip. I want to play this Donald Trump clip, and then we come forward, we will talk about it. But let me just get out of the way right quick. I want to start here. Donald Trump made his way to a black church this weekend in Detroit. I can't do no better than that. I know you're laughing already, but let me give you some sound. Just 2 minutes right quick here of Donald Trump in this black church, and of all places, Detroit. You know why he's there. Michigan, swing state. Biden loses Michigan, is over. So Donald Trump, not unlike Joe Biden, taking up residency between now and November in Michigan. Here's Trump over the weekend.
I had some issues early in my life, young black man in the city. I got incarcerated, and it just so happened to be under the Joe Biden's 1994 crime bill. I'd like to thank you for working on the First Step Act that reversed that. That was big. That was real big. Anyway, I turned my life around right now. I have 6 children, and I worry about their future. Democrats are attacking our kids right now. What will you do to protect our children and their future?
Well, we're going to get your children jobs. We're going to make it possible for them to work. We're going to stop illegals from coming in, because your biggest threat are the illegals taking the jobs. We have threats as to security, too, because, again, so many of them come from prisons and jails, from mental institutions, and even insane asylums. That's a step above, it's many steps above mental institutions. And we're not going to allow this to happen. And the first community, and this is open knowledge, that's being affected, and affected very badly, is the black community, because they're taking your jobs. And we want people to come into our country, but they have to come in legally. They have to be vetted, and they have to come in legally. So I think that's the biggest single thing that we can do in terms of the future, because you see already what's happening, where your wages are down, it's going down, it's going to get very bad. I think it's going to get very bad. So we have to close up the border, we have to stop, and we want people to come in, but we want them to come in legally, and they have to come in through a legal process. It's so unfair to our country. But I think that's the biggest thing we can do.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
President.
you very much. Congratulations, Steve.
All right, you've heard it. We'll talk about it with Ashley Wood Henderson. We come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Get ready to play. Join the LA84 Foundation Saturday, June 29th for a free Playday block party at 2141 West Adams Boulevard with sports, games, and fun for all ages. With live music, amazing local food, and the spirit of LA's 1984 Summer Olympics celebrating 40 years of impact of the LA84 Foundation. June 29th at LA84's campus in West Adams from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Register at la84.org. See you at Playday.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
Be quiet.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin?
This is Tavis Smiley. Glad to have you tuned in today. We have some technical issues here, but we'll get that figured out here shortly. But delighted to have you on our program today. In this first hour, our guest is Ashley Wood Henderson. She is the co-executive director of the Highlander Center, and I'm pleased, as always, to have Ashley on this program. Ashley, let me jump right in. We played that clip a moment ago of Donald Trump at this black church in Detroit. I don't need to say much more than that. You heard it. The audience heard it. Your thoughts, and I will jump from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we know is that the far right, under the
This is
leadership
the
of folks
KBLA
like Donald
Sports Minute
Trump,
with Ray Richardson.
lie often and consistently to our people. Brookings Institute debunked this idea that immigrants are stealing jobs from American workers in totality and from black workers specifically a long time ago, back in 2017, the last time he tried to sell us on this bag of goods. What we know for sure is that, one, some immigrants, in fact, a lot of them are black people coming from black countries. So, one, it's just like a fake fight to be in the first place around our black people who are immigrating to this country, taking jobs from black Americans who were born here. Second of all, most immigrants that are coming to this country are filling the jobs that most of us that are born here don't want to work in the first place. And in fact, them doing so has been incredibly boosting to our economic growth and to innovation in our workforce and the economy in general. So he's a liar. He's been a liar. And the First Step Act is his, quite frankly, weak attempt at telling black men in particular that somehow the right wing is going to be better for us than the Democratic Party. Now, there are arguments to be made that both parties have failed black people, but there is a fundamental difference that you're going to hear about when y'all start talking about Project 2025 between a fascist authoritarian party and a neoliberal reformist party like the Democrats. There's certainly no question that Joe Biden has been better for black people, for LGBTQ plus people, for women than Donald Trump has ever been.
We'll get your take on Project 2025 since you mentioned it. We'll get your brief take on that before I get to that issue later on today's program. I do want to get your temperature on that. But let me stay with this Trump audio that we played a moment ago of him in this black church. It seems to me that while the president is obviously engaged in a red herring, his data, as I said on C-SPAN earlier today on Washington Journal, his data has to always be checked. His framing is typically always wrong. And yet a broken clock is right twice a day. And the one thing that Donald Trump is right about is that there is increased competition in certain cities that African Americans and others have to engage because there are business owners. Let's get in the right frame here. There are in fact business owners who would much rather pay less for labor. And so
Totally.
when these Republican governors are playing this game, which I find reprehensible, of putting undocumented workers on buses and sending them to places and parts unknown. They know nothing of where they're going. They know nothing of what to expect when they arrive. But they put them on these buses with these lies, speaking of lies, and promises, and they get to New York, Chicago, or elsewhere, Milwaukee, you pick it. There's a bunch of places they've been sending them. They get there, they don't know why they're there, what they're supposed to do, but they've been promised something that obviously is not coming to fruition. And so they get off these buses and they're looking around, and it is what it is. In that regard, when these employers in these cities, I know this because I had Father Flager from Chicago on this program weeks ago to talk about this and what they're doing in Chicago, pushing back on the government, the city government, and the state government to make sure that black workers are protected. Because what's happening is that these undocumented workers are being offered these jobs at less than they're paying many African Americans and others, and you see how that works. That ain't rocket science. So the president is right about the fact that there is a competition. I'm not sure they're here taking jobs that that we'd want to do anyway. I take your point, but there is a rub here where certain people now are in competition with these undocumented who these business owners will pay less money to. That's a fact, Ashley.
Well, I mean, it's a right-wing strategy to pit people who are oppressed by the very same people who are making these arguments
That's right.
against each other, right? That's the goal. And I think that's also the thing that we should be paying attention to, Project 2025. They've been very blatant about it, right? They are absolutely trying to pit people of color against each other because if people of color turn out to vote en masse, Democrats win. That's what the data shows, right? So if they can pit Black American workers against new Americans of color, then that splits the Democratic Party's vote. If they can split Black formerly incarcerated people off as a block from other Black American folks and other folks of color, including formerly incarcerated people, or honestly, sometimes even currently incarcerated people who still have a right to vote because they haven't been convicted of a felony that would take away their right to vote, if they can continue to just like one at a time pull people away, whether it's swing voters or folks that are disheartened by the Democratic Party, then they know they have a better chance. It's why they've been so insistent on pushing voter suppression bills for the last 4 to 8 years. So, yes, it is certainly true that right-wing governors have been, shoveling our people onto buses and planes, moving them to blue cities, and then demanding that democratically held cities then do something about it economically. Totally true, but it's a part of a right-wing strategy to exacerbate a crisis for the sake of them being able to pull a few more votes.
Yep. We had those technical issues earlier, and it kind of threw us off our square, getting this conversation started the way it should have started. Let me go back to what I always do whenever you're on, so you know where I'm going here. I never, ever want people to not understand what the Highlander Center is, what it is all about. I raised it again because on C-SPAN earlier today, I had a Republican right-wing caller calling to the show and went into the King thing and saying to me I should be more like King and I should judge folk by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. I had to lecture this Republican on C-SPAN today about how they got this all twisted, and I won't go into that. But I got that King call that always comes when you appear where in any space where Republicans have access to you. So I addressed that earlier today. I raised that because there is a direct link, of course, between King and Highlander. So tell us very quickly about the work that Highlander does. Give me the King story, the Rosa Parks story, and then there are 2 polls that are out today that I want to ask you about. One of them, let me just tee it up right quick. One headline is that the majority of black people say that the system is against them. It's a new poll by Pew, and Pew does the best work out there. The poll finds widespread belief that bias by institutions holds back communities of color. That's one poll. The second poll out today that finds another Pew study, they're busy at Pew, that finds that many black Americans are suspicious of government. Now, that cuts a variety of ways. We just talked about Donald Trump and black male voters. In an election year, that cuts a variety of ways potentially, that many black Americans are suspicious now more than ever, of government. Those two polls out now. We'll get Ashley's comments on those in a moment. But first, Ashley, tell me about the Highlander Center that I love so dearly.
Absolutely. So Highlander is a school. It's a place that is a catalyst for grassroots organizing and movement building, specifically in Appalachia and across the South. But because of our role in the Southern Freedom Movement, have also impacted national and international social movement building. Basically, if you're a person that believes in fighting for justice, equity, sustainability for all people and for this planet, then we support those efforts to take collective action to shape their own destiny. So we've been training people on how to basically save the world through popular education and language justice, participatory action research, cultural organizing, intergenerational organizing, and more. We bring people together. I tell people often, if I have to sum it up in a sentence, that we've been bringing people together to figure stuff out since 1932. And to the point about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, not only were they people who came and participated in teaching and learning with the folks that worked and were recruited to come and train at Highlander, they went on to, some of them, to be leaders of our organization. Rosa Parks in particular, right? Miss Rosa, yes, came and trained at the Highlander Folk School before she did the Montgomery bus boycott, which many of us now are fashioning all of our work after. But she went on to be on our board of directors, which is why, in no small part, I can be the first Black woman to serve as its executive director. Martin Luther King came through, I think, on our 25th anniversary, and also knew that Highlander was going to be a safe space for him to come, during his Southern travels, which was not very many spaces, as you can imagine. And so people like him, people like our beloved Vincent Harding, people like Grace Lee Boggs, and Jim Lawson, and so many, many, many more, both as our ancestry and our elders, but also contemporary freedom fighters from the age of born to the age of leaving this planet. So we're really, really blessed to still have an almost 200-acre facility in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains in East Tennessee where people come to do this work.
I love it. I never want to miss the opportunity for people to be empowered by the story of all that has happened historically and all that is happening under her leadership at the Highlander Center. She has an iconic position, running an iconic institution, and we celebrate their work ongoing. She mentioned the name of Jim Lawson. That is the same Jim Lawson, of course, that we are been talking about on this program the last week or so, given that he passed away last Sunday, a week ago yesterday. Jim Lawson passed away. They are working on arrangements for his funeral here in L.A., where he pastored the Holborn United Methodist Church after working with King in Nashville and in Memphis. He's the one that made the call to King to invite Dr. King to come to Memphis to lead that sanitation workers strike. He is the greatest practitioner and teacher of nonviolent civil disobedience, nonviolent resistance. He and Vincent Harding, just two amazing names. Just to hear those names again gives me chill bumps. But more about Jim Lawson in the coming days, once we know more about his arrangements for those who carry across the country, and certainly those in L.A., many of whom know him and have known him for decades, given his residency here and, again, pastoring the historic Holborn United Methodist Church. Now, watching my time, got about 4 minutes in this segment. We'll continue when we come forward, but there are these two polls that are out. I'll start with this one. And again, when these studies come out, Ashley, I don't think any of us are surprised by the data. But since our good white brothers and sisters always love data, we might as well give it to them. And Pew is really good at giving us data that matters, and so I celebrate the work that they do. This first poll finds today that a majority of Black people say that the system is against them. The poll finds, as I intimated moments ago, a widespread belief that bias by various institutions, public and private, is holding back communities of color. No surprise there, but how do you read that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I read it a bunch of different ways. I think for your excellent segue into this, I doubt most Black Americans are surprised. I think the devil of this report is in the details, and I just want to shout out Kiana Cox for providing this really, really important research for us to delve into. One thing that I think is important to pay attention to is that people were polled across an ideological spectrum, right? There are very conservative right-wing Black Americans that were surveyed, people with degrees, without degrees, people that are progressives and leftists were interviewed, people of different economic backgrounds, different genders and sexual preferences, right? So this is a broad spectrum of people. It's really important to pay attention to the methodology of the study. And, I think the lessons for this are what do we now do with this data? But before I get into what we should do with this data, I want to say the evidence is clear. People understand that the system isn't broken. The systems in the United States are not broken. They're working exactly as they were designed to, which is to consolidate the wealth and power of white people. That's what this country was founded on. And people are disdained with that, but they don't necessarily know then what to do about it, right? Again, I think going back to Trump in Detroit, it's like the blame game, if we hear Trump tell it, is that we should be mad at the Democrats. Listen to the Democrats, we should be mad at the Republicans, when actually the two-party system is working exactly as it was designed to, which is not actually helping anybody, any of us really, to the degree that it should be, which is why we need to be organizing and creating power on the outside of these institutions to drive these institutions to actually succumb to our demands, what's good for our material benefit. And I think what becomes clear as you get into the details of the study is that the right is moving a strategy, a narrative to pit us against each other, and their talking points have infiltrated the status quo of Black America. Right? They are telling Black people what is good for us, what isn't good for us. Black Republicans are saying that the government encourages Black single motherhood. Right? Like that's if we talked about it at the barbershop, we would laugh them off the block. But when we see this stuff codified through the electoral process, it can be confusing. And so I think the moral of the story of this survey, of this research, is that we have to be talking to our people more than they are talking to our people. The Tavis Smiley show is actually really critical to that. We need to be setting and moving the narratives and agendas that impact Black people. We need to do the ongoing work that helps us navigate and make meaning of what's happening, what has happened in our past, what have these systems done to harm our people, what are the ways that we have organized to make them less harmful, what are the ways that we've built alternatives to these systems, and make meaning of it in the present, and to define and set the agenda for what our future should be. Yeah. The survey doesn't go on to do all of that, but it does give us plenty of evidence that Black people are not confused about the ways that economic institutions, political institutions, the criminal justice system, or I would say the criminal legal system, and justice system, the political system, et cetera, is harming us. And now we need to say what we're going to do about it.
Now, there's one quote I want to read right quick here, watching my time, from this article specifically about this survey. The study found that more than 8 in 10 Black Americans who were surveyed agreed with this statement, quote, Black people are more likely to be incarcerated because prisons want to make money on the backs of Black people, close quote. 8 in 10 believe that. That ties back into the clip we played from Donald Trump earlier at this church in Detroit, where this formerly incarcerated brother was expressing himself about what it meant to be incarcerated, and he believes that Democrats have had a hand in all of this. Joe Biden is the one that pushed the crime bill when he was a member of the United States Senate. Right. And these brothers are not ignorant. They remember these things. They understand these things. They're connecting these dots. And that's why that Trump clip resonates with me and kind of scares me. I don't believe these numbers are going to be nearly as high as the polls indicate of Black men voting for Donald Trump. But for those who think these guys are just stuck on stupid, they're not. They're connecting the dots here, and they're making points that we need to wrestle with. I digress for now. More about that when we come forward with our guest in this hour, Ashley Woodard Henderson, co-executive director of the Highlander Center. Pleased to have her right now on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
it's you. You're everything I ever dreamed would come to me. Somebody walked into my heart, and to my surprise, somebody's tearing me apart, and it feels just fine. And it's you. I've waited oh so long to say it's you. You're everything I ever dreamed. And tonight I gave in to the feeling.
I'm Tavis Smiley. That is the smooth sound of Angela Bofield. You might have heard over the weekend that this amazing R&B vocalist passed away here in California at the age of 70. Some amazing hits brought to us over the years by Angela Bofield. Again, dead today at the age of 70. June is Black Music Month, and every day on this program during the month of June, we pick a different artist of the day and we play their music all day long in all 3 of our hours. Play some of the best of our particular artist in residence on a particular day. That artist today is Angela Bofield, whose life and legacy we celebrate, dead now, again, at the age of 70. But we'll be playing some of the best of Angela all 3 hours of today's program. We continue our dialogue now with Ashley Woodard Henderson, co-executive director of the Highlander Center, and I'm, again, delighted to be in conversation with her. We were talking a moment ago about this poll. There are 2 polls out today I want to get to. One of them is a headline that a majority of black people say that the system is against them. They see very clearly the bias in these systems, both public and private, when it comes to black people. I was making the point a moment ago that when you have, 8 in 10 black people who agree that black folk are more likely to be incarcerated because prisons want to make money on the backs of black people, they're right about that. And I've complained consistently, as have Ashley and others, about the privatization of prisons in this country. But this takes us back to the point that Ashley so brilliantly made earlier, that these black folk who are talking to Trump and complaining about these issues lose sight of the fact that it's Trump's friends who own these prisons. They're the ones who are privatizing these prisons. They're the ones who are making money off of their incarceration. And that's a critical dot that they're not connecting, Ashley, as I see it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a really incredible article in Politico, Biden versus Trump, who's the actual criminal justice reformer. Mm-hmm. This was back the last time that they faced off against each other, and not much has changed. I mean, again, what's interesting about this data is they ask these questions about is the system and all the ways that the system was categorized, whether it was economic or criminal legal system, et cetera, and people said these systems are against them. What's real, though, if you get to the quotations, which I think is really smart of you, Tavis, is that people were saying, yes, the system is against them for very, very different reasons, right? Black Republicans were saying things that were very, very different than what young people and people without degrees and working class people, et cetera, were saying. So I just want to be super clear that just because all the skin folks said the system was against us, it wasn't always for the same reason, and some of it was to spew right-wing propaganda about how if capitalism was just better, black people could pull themselves up by their bootstraps, et cetera. What's real, to your point about the difference between Trump and Biden in relationship to mass incarceration, is that Biden is, I mean, don't get me wrong, no question that his record of championing tough on crime legislation in the 80s and 90s has had a direct impact on every black person I know, including myself. Nobody should be more disdained and more distrustful of Joe Biden than us. No question. No question. I'm not arguing with people about that. And what's true is that our decades worth of organizing has proven him to have been wrong then, right? We've made impossible things possible through our direct action, through our organizing, through our policy work. And so Biden has said that he's going to work with Congress to repeal federal mandatory minimum sentences, right, and give states an incentive to repeal their mandatory minimum laws. He said that his administration would create competitive grant programs to push states to invest in programs that prevent and reduce incarceration, right? He said that he would use his clemency power to commute unduly long sentences for people that were convicted of nonviolent federal crimes, which happened, right? And he said that he was going to push for decriminalization. This fool Donald Trump is not doing that, right? He's not only been a proponent, like Trump has said that he's supportive of private prisons. Biden said he would close them, right? Biden has said that he would reverse his support for capital punishment. That's huge, right? He would get Congress to eliminate the death penalty at the federal level and incentivize states to do the same. Donald Trump has been one of the biggest perpetuators and excited about the death penalty and praised people that were in leadership of places like China and the Philippines for executing drug dealers, and said that they would go to his administration would go to the Supreme Court to restart federal executions, even though the U.S. hasn't executed a prisoner on death row since like 2003. Right? He's supportive of solitary confinement. Right? Donald Trump is actually not pushing for, outside of the First Step Act, which frankly most people who had been involved in the fight to end mass incarceration thought came nowhere close to what needs to be done, is Trump change to Black people, and he's assuming that we won't read the fine print and hear his other public declarations of support for mass incarceration of our people, whether they're Black people that were born with papers or Black people that are immigrating to this country and trying to become citizens of the United States. Like, we are not confused, and I think he's expecting that we will be.
Yeah. What does it say to you? Now, I want to hone in more specifically now on government. We've talked earlier about this report from Pew that finds that African Americans believe that the system is rigged against them. That's across the board. But I want to come specifically now to how they feel about the government. Many of them in this poll say that legal, political, and economic systems in the country are designed to hold people back. But I raise this because I'm open to have a legitimate conversation. I'm not sure we're going to get that a couple of weeks from now when Donald Trump and Joe Biden square off for this first debate, literally a couple of weeks from now. I'm not sure we're going to get this, but I am open to, I'm never afraid to debate the other side about the legitimate role of government. I go back to Mario Cuomo, former governor of New York, who gave an amazing speech at the Democratic Convention years ago in San Francisco. And he later wrote a book called Reason to Believe. And in that book, Reason to Believe, which is one of my favorite books, Governor Cuomo went into how we on the left make the argument for the proper role of government. But we must be willing to admit the government cannot do everything, and it can't do everything well. I'm open to a legitimate conversation about the proper role of government. I'm not sure we'll get that with Biden and Trump. I'm raising that only because while I'm open to that conversation, what does in fact concern me is that Black people, as much as ever, are still suspicious of government. And again, that opens up the door to other people like Trump, etc., when Black people in particular are just flat out suspicious of government. I don't want to overstate it, but that suspicion has always been there, nothing new. But this poll really puts a finger on this thing, and it concerns me, Ashley.
Yeah, I mean, I think it, like most polls, asks particular questions of a particular constituency, and what is to be done, what happens because of that data, remains solely in our hands. Right, solely in our hands. Mm-hmm. This isn't new information, in that we know that Black people are aware that the American political system is rigged to favor the two major parties. We also know that those two major parties have all too often done few things to help us and much more things to harm us on both sides, right? There's no question about that. What I'm hearing in the streets is people being like, there ain't really no difference between Trump and Biden, so why should I participate, right? Mm-hmm. Biden is a genocide apologist. Donald Trump is a fascist authoritarian. Like, why should we want either of those people to be in charge of arguably one of the most powerful nation states in the world? Well, and I think to your point, it's like, because the people that are making decisions about the things that we care about, the things that we hit the streets about, the things that we talk about, over drinks and at the club and at the water cooler at work, those things are being dictated by people who control budgets and are implementing policies that are negatively impacting our communities. So we should be deciding who gets to make those decisions. That's all the vote is. Right? That's all the vote is. And while we're doing that, we also at the very same time have to decide that we are going to build the kind of party to determine what they do while they're in the seat. We haven't been as good as that, right? We haven't done that very well. Mm-hmm. We got Biden elected in 2020, and then we didn't have the stamina, we didn't take advantage of the momentum, and we didn't have the collective power to say, you've got to give us everything that we've demanded. You've got to give us reproductive justice. You've got to give us immigration reform. You've got to give us criminal justice reform and divesting from the police state and investing in our communities. You've got to give us, living wages, the end of student debt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's more work that we need to do to build the kind of power that allows us to govern ourselves, no question. But in the meantime, in the between time, we need to take very, very seriously what it means to stop Project 2025 from becoming a reality on the federal level and building the state level power that we need to make sure that even when Donald Trump loses, because he has to lose, Black people, like if you think the system is bad for Black people now, just wait until Donald Trump becomes president and you hear what he's planning to do, what he's publicly aligned with Project 2025.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that what they're planning on the federal level doesn't also continue to kill people on the state level. I can tell you in the South, that's definitely a reality already.
We're going to talk a lot more about Project 2025 in the second hour of this program. We'll get Ashley's thoughts on that in a moment. In the 2 minutes I have here right now, before we come forward and continue our dialogue, speaking of prisons, there's news today out of Maryland. Our dear friend and brother, the brother governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, has made news. He has engaged in action that makes Maryland the very first state in the U.S. to issue mass pardons on cannabis paraphernalia-related convictions. Wes Moore announces today the pardons of more than 175,000 Maryland convictions. More than 175,000 Maryland convictions are being wiped out with the stroke of a pen. The pen of Governor Wes Moore. What do you make of that news, Ashley Whittington?
I mean, first of all, big ups to the community organizations in Maryland that got this man elected and are holding him accountable to the people's demand. Shout out to Governor Moore for making it happen. I feel like we should count this as a win, and we should also be real about what it does and doesn't do. This is the season where we have to hold that multiple things are true at the same time, and that's true on the federal level and the things we just discussed, and that's true on the state level here in Maryland. So just want to be straight up that the pardon is not going to result in releasing anyone from incarceration because none of these folks are imprisoned, right, is my understanding. Even the ACLU has said that, Maryland still incarcerates the highest percentage of Black people in the country at 71% of the prison population, which is more than twice the national average. There is still work to do. Maryland also leads the nation in sentencing young Black men to the longest prison terms at, a rate about 25% higher than the second highest rate, which is Mississippi. So there's more work to be done. But this is a win, and we should claim it as such. And it's not the first win, right? President Biden pardoned thousands of people who were convicted of use and possession of marijuana on federal land and in the District of Columbia, Philadelphia, and Pennsylvania. We've seen folks moving to try to have something similar done. Shout out to both Governor Moore in Maryland and Brandon Scott, right? Baltimore's man, who's also been leading the charge on that across the East Coast. We've seen folks in Massachusetts having those conversations, et cetera. So now we need to put the pressure on because we have a win.
That's why I love Ashley. She brings it. This is a nice story that you're pardoning more than 175,000 marijuana convictions, but ain't nobody in jail, and you're still incarcerating more Black people than any other state in the union. Take that. More when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking.
That's what we do around here.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit LAFLA.org. LAFLA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
I'm Tavis Smiley. Glad to have you tuned in. Our guest is Ashley Woodard Henderson, co-executive director of the Highlander Center. We're going to talk about this more in the second hour. As I mentioned earlier, Ashley, but you mentioned a couple times now, Project 2025. It is scary. Again, more details, a greater and more in-depth conversation with our guest in hour two. But since you raised it a couple times, obviously it's on your mind. So tell me why Project 2025, this Republican effort, is on your mind today.
Listen, it's because the right wing is not being secretive about what their strategy is, and it would be terrifying if it was only a strategy. But it's also a policy plan. It's a list to hire people into the next Trump administration. They're training people. It's a over $22 million project of over 80 organizations that are different ideologies. They have different tactical expertise, and they're coming together to totally transform the federal government as we've known it and towards a fascist authoritarian regime that is going to impact you, whether you are a worker, if you are a person of color, if you are a woman, if you are a queer person or a trans person, a gender nonconforming person, if you are a poor person, if you are a formerly incarcerated person. Like, they come in for all of us, and they've written an almost 1,000-page plan to tell us how. I'm not telling you to read all of it because I don't want you to be like me, losing sleep over it every single day. But I do want you to know the ways that Project 2025 is going to impact you and the people that you care about. And it's exactly why we have to do everything in our power to keep Donald Trump from getting elected, while also building the kind of power on the state level to keep them from being able to move this under a Biden administration.
What do you make? Let me just be direct and transparent about this, as I always try to be, with all of my guests, but certainly you. What do you make of the organization of the right? Whatever you say about them, whatever you say about their nominee. I was at a dinner party this week, and this came up at the dinner party. Everybody looked at me to ask me what I thought, like I'm the expert because I'm a talk show host. They looked at me, but it's clear that they have organized all across the country. They've got all the right officials in the right seats, so that if this race is close, Donald Trump's going to have help literally all across the country stealing this election, because all the right people, these election officials, are in place across the country. That has been an organized effort. Now we're talking about Project 2025, an organized effort. In the 60 seconds I have now, we'll continue in a moment. What do you make, at the outset of this question, of the organization of the right?
Listen, I mean, they've been willing to be low ego, high impact with one another in a way that has created a MAGA faction inside of the Republican Party. So even though there are conservative people of decent will who are not fascists, they currently don't have the power to control the Republican Party because the MAGA forces inside of their united front of conservatism is ruling the name of the day. And these MAGA Republicans have decided that the people need to believe that government doesn't work. It helps them consolidate their own wealth and power. So they are weaponizing existing government agencies to dismantle democracy itself. They are coming together to do that, and we need to do something about it.
I love how Ashley turns a phrase. That's about right. Low ego, high impact. They don't care about the ego part. We can live with a low ego. It's the high impact we're concerned about, as evidenced by the Supreme Court being packed. I digress. Our remaining moments with Ashley Woodard Henderson of the Highlander Center when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right. Yeah. La 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 la. Pick up to 40 days of consistency. On low Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face. When it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah. Breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Ashley Woodard Henderson of the Highlander Center and co-executive director there. And I'm pleased, of course, to have her on this program. I got about 4 minutes left. Let me cover two things right quick. You mentioned earlier that you talked to a lot of young people who see they have two choices: a genocide apologist in Joe Biden and a fascist authoritarianism in Donald Trump. That's a bitter pill to swallow. A genocide apologist on one side, as some people see it, and a fascist authoritarian on the other side. Not a good frame to be in. I raised this because it's breaking news as well. Netanyahu has disbanded his war cabinet. The president, the prime minister, I should say, is now expected to hold a consultation about the Gaza war with a small group of ministers, but he has disbanded his war cabinet. So this thing is going from bad to worse in terms of how this is being executed in the Middle East. But I close with this and give you the last 2.5 minutes to you. How is this Gaza situation going to impact, you think, President Biden? And ultimately, how do you think these young people are going to come down? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but if they think they've got a genocide apologist on one hand and a fascist authoritarian on the other hand, do they stay home? What do they do? How's all of this going to impact Biden's reelection?
Yeah, I mean, I think what young people, old people, people of goodwill alike are all struggling with how to navigate the disgusting impact of the U.S.'s participation in the genocide that's happening in Gaza is going down. I want to be super clear. Netanyahu is a fascist. He's been a fascist. He was a fascist before October 7th. He continues to be a fascist. He's doing exactly what a fascist would do. He is leaving scorched earth at the expense of regular people in Gaza, some of them who look exactly like you and me, Uncle Tavis, and that's just something that we should not be sitting idly by. We need to be demanding a ceasefire. We need to be demanding an end to the occupation of Palestine. We need to be demanding justice for our people there, and we need to be calling for Netanyahu to not be in power. We need to be supporting people that are fighting for democracy in the Middle East. And I think one of the ways that we do that is by demanding that Joe Biden actually create an arms embargo with Israel. It's ridiculous. Like, you know how much community organizing we could do in L.A., across the South, across this country, if we were using the money that we're sending to Israel to support their war on regular people, if we were using the money that we're spending to develop the bombs and to send the bombs that are killing Black and brown children in Gaza, what we could do with those resources to make sure that our people here domestically were taken care of is infinite. We would actually win some things and be able to be in a position of power. So Netanyahu is a fascist. We should be fighting him.
As I said earlier, at the top of this hour, she's on my favorite guest. I don't have her on this program as often as I'd like to have her on, but she's busy. She's running the Highlander Center, this famed institution that teaches and trains all kinds of people. And the legends who have gone into that space and entered those buildings and on that campus just inspire me to do the work that I attempt to do here every day. But we thank the co-executive director of the Holiday Center, Ashley Woodard Henderson, for once again joining us and sharing her insights. Ashley, we will do it again, I hope a few times between now and November, but always an honor to have you on this program. Thanks for your insights.
Looking forward to it. Love you much.
Love you much. Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Esther Dillard, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Americans don't have a positive outlook on personal finances and the economy. The University of Michigan reports consumer sentiment slipped in June 3.5 points from May as worries about long-term inflation edged higher. Florida is being hit with another day of flooding downpours. The National Weather Service says heavy to excessive rainfall will continue to bring flooding to the southern Florida peninsula, with considerable flash and urban flooding possible. The Weather Protection Center has issued a level 2 flood threat for South Florida. And Pope Francis hosted an international gathering of comedians, including Whoopi Goldberg, Chris Rock, Jimmy Fallon, and Stephen Colbert. He encouraged them to continue to make people laugh in the midst of dealing with problems and gloomy events. According to CNN, he said, quote, "You unite people because laughter is contagious." And that's the latest. I'm Esther Dillard from the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Trouble on the 22 West involving a tractor-trailer accident remains blocking 2 left lanes in Westminster after the Golden West Knott Street interchange. Stop traffic is now up to 45 to an hour from Fairview Hester Street interchange. There's also an accident in Anaheim's 5 North at Catella Avenue causing a 30-minute backup running heavy from Highway 133. Right now we don't have any lane information, but please watch out for that heavy traffic flow. Injury, hit and run accident on the 118 East in Pacoima before Glen Oaks Boulevard has 2 middle lanes still blocked with heavy traffic over 35 minutes an hour from Woodley Avenue. And then on the 91 West before Studebaker Road and Cerritos, drive carefully and expect heavy traffic from Ornsthorpe Avenue over 15 minutes due to an accident on the right shoulder.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The NBA Finals are back in action tonight in Boston. Game 5 between the Celtics and Dallas Mavericks. The Celtics are up 3-1. A win gives the Celtics an NBA record 18th championship, one more than the Lakers. Tip-off time tonight at 5:30 on ABC. NBA Hall of Famer Charles Barkley said he's retiring from TV work after next season. The 61-year-old Barkley said the 2024-25 NBA season will be his last. Barkley said he has no plans to move on to another network. Barkley has been with TNT's Emmy Award-winning Inside the NBA studio show for 24 years. The Sparks fall to 4-10 in the WNBA after losing by 13 to the Atlanta Dream. The Dodgers shut out Kansas City yesterday, but they lost shortstop Mookie Betts for several weeks. Betts suffered a broken hand when he was hit by a pitch in the 7th inning. Betts will be examined by a hand specialist today. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
When I move my body, I feel like freedom. Happy anniversary, KBLA.
Talk radio station west of the Mississippi.
And they wondered if a black talk radio station would work in Southern California.
Y'all did it!
Well, KBLA Talk 1580 toasts its 3rd anniversary on Juneteenth, and you're invited to celebrate with us.
Hey, Tavis Smiley, y'all the bomb.
All you have to do is go to KBLA1580.com right now and sign up. Admission is free, but mandatory, and space is limited. Once we reach capacity, we'll have to cut off the online registration, but it's open right now.
Oh, my God.
So don't delay.
Thank you guys for being the best at what you do.